The Gate of Life, a journey beyond the threshold of being. Introduction. The singular depth. In the beginning, before the multiplicity of forms and the ceaseless dance of phenomena, there exists a depth, singular, absolute, and ineffable. This depth is not a place one travels to, nor a state one achieves through striving. It is the primordial ground from which all perception arises, the silent wellspring that births every experience, every thought, every fleeting moment of awareness. From this one depth, like rays emanating from an unseen sun, project forth the myriad perceptions that constitute what humanity calls the self, the ego, that intricate tapestry woven from threads of sensation, memory, desire, and identity. The seeker who turns inward soon discovers a profound truth. Consciousness itself stands as the gate of life, the threshold between the temporal and the eternal, the portal through which one either descends into the labyrinth of illusion or ascends into the boundless expanse of pure being. This gate swings on invisible hinges, opening and closing according to the direction of one's attention, the quality of one's presence. It is simultaneously the barrier and the passage, the veil and the revelation, the descent into imagination. When consciousness, that luminous faculty through which the soul perceives itself and the world, becomes entangled in the web of superficial activities, it begins a gradual but inexorable descent. Like a river that loses its way among countless tributaries, awareness scatters itself across the landscape of external concerns. The seeker becomes absorbed in the endless pursuits of achievement, acquisition, and becoming, chasing shadows across the walls of a cave while forgetting the light that casts them. This outward movement of consciousness represents not merely a distraction but a fundamental displacement of being. The soul, forgetting its divine origin, identifies itself with the transient phenomena of mind and matter. It mistakes the reflection for the source, the wave for the ocean, the dream for the dreamer. In this state of forgetfulness, consciousness dwells in what the mystics have named the space of imagination, that realm where thoughts, desires, and projections weave themselves into seemingly solid structures, creating worlds upon worlds of mental constructs that appear more real than reality itself. The space of imagination is seductive in its complexity, offering endless theaters of experience, infinite scenarios of becoming. Here, the ego performs its elaborate dramas, convinced of its own significance, certain of its separateness, anxious about its continuation. The soul, imprisoned in this self-created maze, exhausts itself in perpetual striving, forever seeking fulfillment in a landscape of mirages, forever postponing the recognition of what it already is. The paradox of effort. Yet the great paradox confronting every spiritual seeker emerges precisely at the moment of recognizing this predicament. For how does one escape the trap of activity? The mind, conditioned by centuries of conditioning, immediately proposes solutions, disciplines to practice, techniques to master, states to achieve, enlightenment to attain. And thus begins another cycle of doing, another elaborate performance in the theater of becoming. The more fervently one struggles to transcend the limited self, the more deeply one becomes entangled in the very mechanisms one seeks to escape. Each effort to grasp the ultimate reinforces the illusion of separation between seeker and sought. Each attempt to become enlightened strengthens the belief in one who is not yet enlightened. The net of activity grows more intricate with each thread of striving added to its design. This is the razor's edge upon which the spiritual path balances, the recognition that liberation cannot be achieved through the same consciousness that created bondage. One cannot think one's way into the thoughtless, cannot strive toward effortlessness, cannot become what one already eternally is. The very notion of spiritual progress, of advancement along a path, contains within it the seed of perpetual postponement, forever placing fulfillment in some imagined future rather than recognizing its immediate availability. The art of sacred surrender. What, then, is the seeker to do when doing itself perpetuates the predicament? Here the mystical traditions speak with one voice across cultures and centuries. The answer lies not in doing but in undoing, not in grasping but in releasing, not in becoming but in being. The path forward is the path of letting go, the way of sacred surrender. Surrender, in this context, does not mean resignation or passivity in the worldly sense. It represents instead a profound relaxation of the will to control, a cessation of the constant effort to manage and manipulate experience. It is the gentle art of allowing things to be as they are, of watching the movements of mind without being swept away by their current, of remaining present to the ever-changing display of phenomena without losing oneself in any particular form. This quality of witnessing awareness, calm, spacious, non-reactive, creates a subtle but transformative shift in consciousness. Instead of being absorbed in the content of experience, one begins to rest in the context, the background, the silent presence that holds all experience without being touched by it. Like a mirror that reflects all forms while remaining formless itself, consciousness discovers its own nature as pure awareness, untainted by what it perceives. Over time, though time itself becomes increasingly irrelevant, this practice of witnessing ripens into a spontaneous release. The activities of mind, no longer fed by attention and identification, gradually lose their grip. Thoughts continue to arise, but they no longer constitute the totality of one's being. Emotions flow through like weather patterns across an infinite sky. The drama of the personal self plays out its remaining scenes while consciousness recognizes itself as the stage, the actors, and the audience simultaneously. The first liberation, pure perception. Then, at a moment that cannot be predicted or forced, a profound shift occurs. The veil parts. The gate opens. Consciousness, having abandoned its futile attempts to grasp the infinite, finds itself embraced by the infinite. Having surrendered all efforts to become something other than what it is, it discovers what it has always been. This first emergence is sometimes called pure perception, a state of awareness so clear, so immediate, so all-encompassing that it seems to embrace the entirety of existence in a single luminous grasp. All boundaries dissolve. The artificial division between inner and outer, between self and world, between subject and object, reveals itself as a conceptual overlay imposed upon the seamless fabric of being. In this state, consciousness experiences itself as coextensive with all that is. It is the world spirit, the universal mind that dreams all dreams, the cosmic awareness within which all individual awarenesses arise like waves in an ocean. There is a profound sense of homecoming, of recognizing one's true nature as identical with the nature of all. The isolation and fragmentation that characterized ordinary consciousness gives way to an experience of fundamental unity, of being woven into the very fabric of reality itself. Yet even this magnificent vision, this experience of cosmic consciousness, is not the final revelation. The mystics, speaking from the depths of their realization, warn against mistaking even this exalted state for the ultimate reality. Pure perception, however vast and luminous, remains a perception, a content of consciousness, however refined and expanded. It is a grand and glorious mansion, but it is still a mansion within the infinite estate. Beyond all categories, the emergence into is. To reach the ultimate, even this must be transcended. Even the world spirit, even the experience of universal consciousness, must be released. This is perhaps the most subtle and challenging threshold, for here one must let go of the most sacred, most profound, most convincing experiences of the spiritual path. One must abandon not only the illusions of the separate self, but also the grandest truths of unity consciousness. What lies beyond? Language falters here, for words themselves are instruments of distinction, tools for creating and maintaining categories. How does one speak of that which utterly transcends all categories? How does one describe the indescribable, point to the ineffable, name the nameless? The sages resort to negative formulations. Not this, not that. Or they use the simplest possible affirmation. Is. Just is. Not being something in particular, not manifesting as this or that form of consciousness, but simply the pure fact of being itself, prior to all differentiation, before the first breath of creation, in the eternal now that precedes time and survives its ending. When consciousness emerges into is, all frameworks collapse. There is no depth to plumb, for depth implies dimension. There is no surface to perceive, for surface implies boundary. There is no thing, for even emptiness is a concept. There is not even the one who experiences this, for the experiencer and the experienced have merged into an identity so complete that even the word identity fails to capture it. This is the state the mystics call by many names: the Absolute, the Godhead beyond God, the void that is simultaneously fullness, the silence that speaks all languages. It is what we have always been, what we can never not be, what requires nothing to be added and nothing to be taken away. It is our original face, the nature we possessed before our parents were born, the essence that remains when all that is non-essential has been stripped away. The inner journey and the vast divinity. Yet even this is not the end. From this ground of is, a new journey begins, or rather, the real journey reveals itself for the first time. No longer seeking to escape the prison of limited consciousness, no longer striving to attain some distant goal, the soul now moves through inner states and worlds with the freedom of one who knows itself to be both the journey and the destination. These are not places one travels to, but dimensions of being one discovers were always present, always accessible, hidden only by the noise of seeking. The inner journey unfolds through landscapes of consciousness that defy ordinary description, realms of pure light, oceans of bliss, abysses of silence, palaces of wisdom, each one a facet of the infinite reflecting itself in endlessly creative patterns. And beyond even these sublime states lies the vast divinity, that which embraces all states and transcends all conditions, that which is simultaneously the source and substance of all reality, the Alpha and Omega, the root and fruit of the cosmic tree. Here, distinctions between sacred and profane, between spiritual and material, between journey and arrival, dissolve completely. Everything is recognized as a manifestation of the One, every moment as an expression of eternal perfection. The supreme wisdom, the art of doing nothing. Having traced this arc from the gate of life through the space of imagination, through the practice of surrender, through pure perception and the emergence into is, through the inner journey to the vast divinity, we arrive at a truth so simple it seems almost absurd. We are what we are forever. Nothing needs to be achieved, attained, or become. The entire journey is a journey of recognition, not acquisition, of uncovering, not construction, of remembering, not learning. The notion that we must become something other than what we are, more spiritual, more enlightened, more awakened, is revealed as the fundamental misconception that keeps consciousness trapped in cycles of striving. These are the nonsense of thought, the games the mind plays with itself, postponing recognition of the ever-present truth until some imagined future when conditions will be perfect for realization. When the futile activities of the mind exhaust themselves, not through forced suppression but through simple non-engagement, what we really are stands revealed. It was never hidden, never absent, never in need of improvement. The mind, with its ceaseless chatter and its endless schemes for self-improvement, was simply making so much noise that the silence in which it appeared went unnoticed. This recognition leads to the practice of supreme wisdom. Doing nothing. Not doing nothing in the sense of lazy inactivity, but doing nothing in the sense of ceasing the constant mental manipulation of experience, the perpetual commentary on what is, the endless strategizing about what should be. It is the art of sitting quietly, just like that, without agenda or expectation, without trying to achieve or become or understand anything at all. And here emerges the final paradox. While this is the simplest, easiest, most comfortable and complete way of being, the conditioned mind finds it nearly impossible to maintain. So deeply ingrained is the habit of doing, so strongly reinforced is the belief that effort is required, that the simple act of being, just being, without modification or improvement, seems like the hardest thing in the world. Meditation, the end of activity. True meditation, then, is not a technique to be practiced or a state to be achieved. It is not an activity added to the repertoire of activities but the cessation of activity itself, the ending of the compulsion to do. It is the natural state of consciousness when it stops trying to be something other than what it is, when it relaxes its grip on experience and allows itself to simply be. In meditation, consciousness returns to its source. The gate of life, which swung outward in the movement of manifestation, swings inward in the movement of return. The prodigal awareness, having wandered through countless realms of experience, recognizes its true home and rests there, complete and content. This is not a special state reserved for mystics and sages. It is the birthright of every conscious being, the natural inheritance of all souls. The only barrier is the belief that barriers exist, the only obstacle the conviction that obstacles must be overcome, the only distance the assumption that distance separates us from what we seek. Conclusion: the eternal present. At the end of all seeking, in the silence beyond all questions, consciousness discovers that it never left home. The entire journey, with all its struggles and insights, its peaks and valleys, its revelations and obscurations, was a dream within the dreamer, a play of awareness exploring its own infinite potential. We are what we are forever. The depth without bottom, the consciousness without boundary, the is without qualification. The gate of life stands eternally open, not as something we must pass through but as something we always already are. To recognize this is to be free, not in some distant future but in this very moment, not after years of practice but in the simple acknowledgement of what is. The invitation is always present, to relax, to surrender, to let go of the exhausting effort to become and rest in the effortless reality of being. To emerge into the infinite not by traveling somewhere but by ceasing to travel, not by doing something but by recognizing what no doing can accomplish and no undoing can diminish. In this recognition lies the end of seeking and the beginning of true life. Life not as a problem to be solved or a goal to be achieved, but as the eternal celebration of consciousness knowing itself, the divine beholding its own face in the mirror of manifestation, the infinite playing in the garden of its own being. Here, in this eternal present, the gate of life reveals its secret. It was never a gate at all, but the very nature of reality itself, always open, always welcoming, always home.